Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more K-pop audition information and tips like this. And today I'm going to be talking about debt and expenses for trainees and idols, part 2. So make sure to go watch part 1 before this because I do give a general overview and also answer a few questions that you guys asked. And in this part, I'm going to be answering more of the questions that you guys asked me. So let's get started with the first question, which is, do they pay for your flight ticket if you pass the audition? So most of the time, no. Like, a lot of the times, no, actually. If they really want you, like if they're really desperate for maybe a new member in the group, or if they really like you, then they could potentially pay for it. But even if it does, it'll go into your debt, so it's not really benefiting you really. And so a related question to that is, I can't pay for a flight ticket, what do I do? And the answer to that is you'll have to find a way. There's no way that the company is going to feel bad for you because you can't pay for a flight ticket. Like, think about it. They're a company, not a donation service place, right? So you'll have to find a way, and think about it. It's one flight ticket for your entire career. So if you think about it in the big picture, it is sort of worth it. And number 3 is, do they pay for your plastic surgery? And so this would also go into your debt, which I did talk about more in part 1. So if you want the more details on that, make sure to watch part 1. However, if they recommend plastic surgery for you, they won't pay for it necessarily. It'll just go into your debt just because it's like costs quite a lot. And keep in mind that companies will never force you to do plastic surgery. I don't know why people think that. Like, a lot of K-pop stans or just people in general think that they'll force plastic surgery upon you, but that's not really going to happen. Pretty sure that's illegal, forcing someone to do plastic surgery. However, they could recommend it. But say you're in a really big company and you're pretty much guaranteed to debut and you're already put in this debut group, they could pay for it, I guess. And so number 4 is, will they pay for your visa? Similarly, it also goes into your debt. The company also does take care of it for you because the process is quite difficult and it depends on what kind of visa you have. And it most likely will be a work visa. It could also be a student visa depending on your situation. But because the process is so difficult, it might not work out. Like this trainee from Taiwan, her name was Lydia, and she was supposed to debut into the group Stacy. Because of her visa problem, she had to stay in Taiwan and could not debut, even though she was part of the debut lineup. So there could also be problems like this. And so the next question is, does every trainee or idol have different debts? Essentially, yes, they do all have different sort of debts. So what impacts this is if the company paid for more things, if you are a student, and also your training period. But once your idol contract is signed, it's pretty much the same between members. And so the next question is, do trainees get allowance? And this really depends on the company. If it was a bigger company, they probably would have allowance, I guess. And by an allowance, I mean like $5 to $10 a week. So it's really nothing that big. And essentially, it will go back into your debt. Like anything else, I'm sure you're kind of sensing the pattern here. So it's not even really like an allowance that they really give you out of their heart. And so the following question is, how long does it take for idols to pay off their debt? And this varies so much you don't even know. So I'll just share some examples of idols revealing how long it took them to pay off their debt. And keep in mind that they probably shared this because their company allowed them to, which means that they have a bit more fair processes, I guess, or it took them fairly like quick enough for them to share. If it took them really long, the company probably would not allow them to share that. So AOA actually had a pretty successful starting years, but it took them 3 years to pay off their debt. G-Friends was pretty fast because their first comeback was really successful in Korea, so it took them like 2 to 3 years. And keep in mind, this is like really fast, 2 to 3 years. And so more of an unfortunate case would be Momoland's Yeonu, who shared this. And she said that even after her blow up with Boom Boom, Momoland's Boom Boom, she never still paid off her debt, and it's not really like revealed when she actually did because this was at the time where she still didn't pay it off. So even idols with hit songs could potentially never pay back their company. And so this unfair payment system also goes into a lot of lawsuits and just legal stuff with the company, which leads to idols or trainees leaving the company. So the next question is, does the big 3 have debt? And so this is like a different story from normal companies, I guess. So to start out, you could say that there are 2 general teams within trainees. So there is the basic training team and then the debut lineup team. As you can tell by their titles, you could see that the debut team, there are hand-picked trainees that companies chose and they're planning on debuting. And then the basic trainings are just like trainees that just entered and they're not really planning to debut at the moment, but possibly like in the future, obviously. And so recently, bigger companies such as the big three, they made that the basic trainees would not have to pay back their debt even if they didn't debut. It would be labeled as research and development so that companies aren't really looking for anything out of them except for research and development. But obviously there are always exceptions, and so this exception would be that if you went against a contract, you would obviously have to pay them back. What you would have to pay back is like obviously your debt and also cost of breaching the contract, which is basically illegal. This is only like rumors flying around that I've actually combined to make sense. So really you don't know what's going to happen until you see the contract for yourself. And so number 9 is, do you still pay back your company if you've never debuted? So let's talk about not the big three because we've already talked about that. So mostly, yes, you would have to pay them back. So companies can't just pay for every trainee's lessons, their food, their dorms, everything like that, just for nothing. Like, it just logically does not make sense. And companies are there to earn money, not to use it on these trainees. And especially if they're a smaller company, they most likely will not let you just leave without paying back your debt. So some exceptions to this would be Chun So-mi. She was in JYP, so that also makes it like a different situation. She benefited JYP through IOI and increasing JYP's image. And JYP actually worked on one of IOI's songs, very. And also she did a bunch of CFs throughout that period, even though she never debuted under JYP. So it's assumed that she didn't have to pay back her debt. However, check out from April, back when she was in Produce 101 Season 1, she actually like literally cried because of how much debt she had. It's like a long story, but essentially they played like a prank on these trainees saying that the cameraman broke the camera, but it was really expensive, but it was during her recording time, but they didn't actually break it. It was like an already broken camera to see like how nice they are, like, which honestly makes no sense. She didn't even drop the camera, but she basically confessed like, oh, it's okay, I'll pay back for it. And then she basically cried because she had so much training debt. And you can see that because she is from a smaller company and she had never debuted, so she never really benefited the image of DSP either. So yeah, there are different situations, but most likely you would have to pay them back. So those are basically all of the questions that I have for you guys. I hope you learned something from part 1 or part 2. If you haven't watched part 1 already, what are you waiting for? It's in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to comment down this emoji if you made it until here. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Pow! Oh, I'm so tired. Hold on, I'll try that again. Just let me catch my breath. My throat is so sore and so dry from talking. And number 3 is, do they pay for your not flight ticket, plastic surgery? And number 3 is, do they